Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of Benjamin Elliott. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Benjamin David Elliott was born on November 14, 2003, and lived in Katy, Texas. He resided with his father, Michael, his mother, Kathy, and his twin sister, Megan, in an 1,800-square-foot house on Brown Meadow Court. He also had an older sister named Elizabeth, who lived in Georgia. Benjamin and his twin sister, Megan, each had their own bedroom in the house. Their bedrooms were separated by a hallway. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On September 29, 2021, at 4:41 a.m., 17-year-old Benjamin Elliott called 911 and whispered to the operator. He indicated that he stabbed his sister with a knife, but thought it was a dream. He was instructed to conduct CPR, which he did. Officers arrived to the Elliott family house 10 minutes after the 911 call was placed. They encountered Benjamin in Megan's bedroom performing CPR on her. Megan had sustained 2 stab wounds to the neck and was pronounced dead by emergency medical personnel. The weapon that killed her was a survival knife, which belonged to Benjamin's father, Michael. First responders noticed that Megan's skin was gray when they arrived. It looked like she had been dead for a while. Benjamin was arrested, mostly because of the murder part. When he was being walked out to a police cruiser in handcuffs, an officer said something about respecting each other. Benjamin responded, quote, "I don't deserve respect. I killed my sister," unquote. During an interview with the police, Benjamin explained how he woke up from a dream to find himself standing over his sister Megan in her bedroom. There was a knife in her neck, which he remembered putting there. He did not remember stabbing his sister the first time. He only remembered the second stab. After waking up from this dream state, he pulled the knife out of her neck, turned on a light, and applied pressure to the wound. A few seconds later, he ran into his bedroom, retrieved his cell phone, and called 911. Benjamin told the police that he and his sister were good friends. The stabbing did not mesh with anything he believed in. It felt like he experienced a realistic nightmare until waking up above his sister on her bed. Benjamin Elliott was released on bond and remained free until his trial started in February 2025. The prosecution argued that the case against Benjamin was straightforward. He killed his sister with a knife, then admitted that he committed the murder. The defense claimed that Benjamin was suffering from a parasomnia. He was sleepwalking when he killed his sister. In this state, he could not possess a criminal state of mind. Therefore, he was not guilty of murder. Both of Benjamin's parents, Michael and Kathy, testified for the defense. Similarly, his older sister Elizabeth testified about a previous incident where Benjamin appeared to sleepwalk. Despite having family support, Benjamin Elliott was found guilty of murder on February 24, 2025. In a curious and unexpected twist, the jury asked the judge for leniency in sentencing. In Texas, the sentence range for murder is 5 to 99 years. The defense requested 5 years. The state recommended 40 years. On February 25, 2025, one day after he was found guilty, Benjamin Elliott was sentenced to 15 years in prison. He could be released in 7.5 years. Now moving to my analysis. Before weighing the guilt or innocence, I want to explain how sleepwalking functions. In the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the DSM, there is a parasomnia called Rapid Eye Movement Sleep Arousal Disorder. It is characterized by recurrent episodes of incomplete awakening from sleep, usually occurring during the first third of a major sleep episode. There are 2 types of this disorder, sleepwalking and sleep terrors. The first type, of course, is the one of interest in this case. Sleepwalking involves repeated episodes of rising from bed during sleep and walking about. An affected person typically has a blank stare. They are relatively unresponsive to efforts to communicate and can only be awakened with great difficulty. During a sleepwalking episode, the individual will typically engage in routine and low complexity behaviors. After the episode, they will have no memory of what happened. On rare occasions, a person who is sleepwalking can become violent, which brings me back to the case of Benjamin Elliott. Despite being convicted, Benjamin maintains his innocence and he has many supporters, including family members. His defense argued that the killing of his sister Megan occurred when Benjamin was sleepwalking. The state, of course, disagrees. They argue that no parasomnia was involved, and the crime was premeditated. This brings me to the question, was Benjamin guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that he was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Benjamin Elliott was not suffering from any documented mental health problems at the time of the attack. Although there was testimony indicating prior sleepwalking episodes, he had never been diagnosed with rapid eye movement sleep arousal disorder, which is the disorder associated with sleepwalking. Benjamin's behavior did not match all the criteria associated with sleepwalking violence. For example, in an episode of sleepwalking violence, the victim is typically not recognized immediately. Benjamin did recognize Megan right after stabbing her. The attack is usually followed by confusion. Benjamin did not appear to be particularly confused. He realized what happened immediately, applied pressure to the wound, retrieved his phone, and called 911. And amnesia for the attack is common. Benjamin remembered stabbing Megan for the second time. He did not have amnesia. The knife used in the attack was retrieved by Benjamin 1 day before the killing. After the alleged crime, he repeatedly admitted to killing his sister, although he maintained it was during an episode of sleepwalking. At one point, an officer asked him where his phone was. Benjamin responded that his phone was at the crime scene. First responders indicated that it appeared as though Megan had been dead for a while, based on her skin being gray and the blood around her body being coagulated. Benjamin told the police that he went to sleep sometime between 2:30 a.m. and 3 a.m. on the day he killed his sister. Data from his cell phone contradict the story. At 4:01 a.m., Benjamin deactivated an alarm that he had set the previous day. He had set the alarm because he was worried about getting up for school. This deactivation makes it seem like he never intended on going back to bed. Maybe he did not want to be interrupted during his grisly deed. At 4:06 a.m., Benjamin unplugged his phone. At 4:08 a.m., he moved 18 feet. As it turns out, this just happens to be the distance from his bedroom to the door of Megan's bedroom and back to his bedroom. At 4:17 a.m., Benjamin's phone was locked. This was the last activity before he called 911, 24 minutes later. When taken together, all these activities during the early morning hours make it look like Benjamin premeditated the killing of his sister. Benjamin offered 3 different versions of his story about what he did immediately after he realized he killed his sister. He changed the order of some of his actions, like turning on the light, pulling the knife out of Megan's neck, and applying pressure to the wound. Based on the area of Megan's neck that was stabbed, blood spatter should have been all over her bedroom. Instead, there wasn't any. The blood was contained to a pillow. This is consistent with Benjamin using the pillow to cover Megan's face while he stabbed her to death. Moving to the exculpatory factors, Benjamin appeared to have a good relationship with his sister. He had no history of violence, no criminal record. When the police responded to the 911 call, they observed that Benjamin was doing a good job with the CPR. They could have stopped him and taken over, but they let him continue. Benjamin could not see well without his glasses, and he was not wearing them when the police arrived. This is consistent with the sleepwalking theory. Even though Benjamin did not have a diagnosis for rapid eye movement sleep arousal disorder, there was testimony in support of the theory that he had prior sleepwalking episodes. A great-aunt testified about a family history of sleepwalking. His older sister Elizabeth testified about an incident involving Benjamin that occurred years earlier. At this time, Elizabeth and Megan shared a bedroom. Benjamin appeared in the bedroom doorway and was unresponsive when both his sisters called his name. His eyes were barely open. Elizabeth touched his shoulder and instructed him to go back to bed. One of Benjamin's friends testified about a slumber party that occurred when Benjamin was around 12 years old. He saw Benjamin on a couch with a partially consumed donut in his hand. Benjamin told his friend that he had this weird dream where he was eating a donut. The incident was confusing for Benjamin. He did not appear to have any idea what happened. A sleep expert for the defense believed that Benjamin suffered from parasomnia. Benjamin would fall asleep quickly but had trouble waking up. Sometimes he would have no memory of conversations, and a sleep study showed that he had an elevated score on the sleepiness scale. The expert believed that handling a knife might have been an automatic behavior due to Benjamin's experience with knives. Benjamin's behavior matched some of the criteria for sleepwalking violence. For example, the victim was loved. Many people indicated that Benjamin loved his sister Megan. There was a history of parasomnia. Witnesses talked about Benjamin having sleepwalking episodes in his past. There was no history of violence. No attempt was made to cover up the crime, and there was no apparent motive. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I believe that Benjamin Elliott was guilty of murder? Yes, he was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. He could have been sleepwalking, but it is highly unlikely, and it does not explain his movements not long before he killed his sister. Again, he moved around the house prior to the killing. He was manipulating his phone. What was going on there? This is inconsistent with his story about when he went to sleep. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Benjamin Elliott deliberately killed his sister. Unless he chooses to tell the truth about what happened, society will probably never learn his motive. Maybe she insulted him. Perhaps he just had a fantasy about killing somebody. There are many possibilities. I found it curious that Benjamin said he was enamored by the knife used in the killing. This could support the idea that he was fascinated by violence. Benjamin realized that he would be caught after the murder, so he developed a story about sleepwalking, knowing that he had a history which could support this defense. He may have remembered that donut story, the one where he woke up with a partially consumed donut in his hand. He thought that if he could get away with killing that donut, why couldn't he get away with killing a person? At Benjamin's trial, his defense did a terrible job in just about every way. For instance, they never offered a clear explanation of parasomnia. The state didn't do a good job either, but the evidence was on their side, and they obtained a conviction. The guilty verdict was no surprise, but the sentence was unexpected. 15 years for murder is a very light punishment. In my opinion, the jury was heavily influenced by how Benjamin's family members came to his defense. Also, Benjamin's parents had already lost one child. Maybe the jury believed it was cruel to take away another. They recommended a light sentence, and the judge felt compelled to honor this recommendation. In addition, Benjamin had no criminal record. Even under these circumstances, I believe 15 years is too light. I would have been fine with 30 years. One mysterious dynamic in this case is why Benjamin's parents came to his defense immediately. There have been other cases where parents took the side of one child who killed another child, but usually they have to think about it for a while. There is a decision-making process. They have to look at the facts in the case, what happened, who did what to whom, what were the potential motivations. This decision was made very quickly. I can't imagine that Benjamin's parents had collected all the evidence at this point. Like there's no way they could have known the complete story that early on. If Benjamin gets released from prison in 7.5 years and is once again living in their house, maybe this decision will not seem quite as prudent. They will always be just one non-existent sleepwalking episode away from a nightmare. Those are my thoughts in the case of Benjamin Elliott. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Over the years, I have covered a few cases where parents are put in a really tough position. The case of Benjamin Elliott is a great example. Here we have a brother who kills his sister, and the parents are left to decide, what are they going to do? Whose side are they going to be on? Are they going to take any sides? In this particular case, they backed Benjamin. This is a really incredibly tough decision. Like, this could not have been easy, which is why I was surprised it was made so quickly. Clearly, any parents who lose one child would be upset and would not want to lose another. But in a sense, if a brother kills a sister, the parents have lost both their children in that moment. I think the error in thinking that can occur here is that there is still one child to save. Like in this instance with Benjamin and Megan, when Benjamin killed Megan, Megan was gone, and Benjamin was gone too. It's really kind of a myth that there's still one child left. The one child left is a killer. So really, Benjamin took out his sister and himself. That's what really happened. That's what functionally occurred as far as how parents could look at it. For his parents to look at Benjamin and say, we have this one son that we can still save, I think that is an error in thinking. Maybe it's just part of not being able to process the tremendous loss. Like losing Megan was devastating, and the parents simply cannot cope with losing Benjamin too. Maybe that led to this very quick decision to back Benjamin, to be on his side during the trial. Again, if one kind of thinks about this all the way through to a logical conclusion, Benjamin killed his sister with a knife during the early morning hours, climbed out of bed, retrieved a knife, and stabbed her. No matter what he was thinking, no matter what excuses he may have, that's extremely dangerous behavior, which is unacceptable. How can the parents ever feel comfortable being in the same house with him? Now, maybe they don't have any plans on inviting him back in after he's released from prison. But still, Benjamin is extremely dangerous. There's no escaping that. He's never going to be someone that inspires comfort in a roommate or a housemate. Regardless of any potential excuses, Benjamin is not a safe person. Really, during the trial, no good explanation for his behavior was put forth. The parasomnia stuff just didn't make much sense in these circumstances. I believe that can happen once in a while. There have been legitimate cases of sleepwalking violence, but this wasn't one of them. So this is just a scary situation, and I can appreciate how people want to save what they can of their family. They want to preserve what they believe can still be preserved. But I don't think that's really possible in this case. I think Benjamin was lost when he made the decision to commit murder.